speaker is going to be speaking to us through the Zoom channels today, and it's Reverend Stanley Maszczak. So let me introduce our esteemed speaker. Reverend Stanley Maszczak is an ordained minister at the chapel. He's a military retiree, a transpersonal coach, and he is currently a seminary student. His work has been greatly impacted by his journey out of Christian fundamentalism in youth and early adulthood as a gay and gender nonconforming person. He served in the U.S. Army Reserve for more than 20 years, both during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy era and after its repeal, working in the military police, public affairs, radio, and television before spending his last years serving in the equal opportunity and harassment prevention and response programs. Stanley joined the chapel in January of 2018 and has served as a past board president and currently serves as our newsletter editor. He's a lifelong student. He has a bachelor's degree in American Studies, a Bachelor of Metaphysical Science, and is currently enrolled in the Master of Divinity program at the Pacific School of Religion. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Stanley Maszczak.
Thanks, Trish. It's so good to see you all and be here today with you. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to connect with you all on Zoom when I can't quite make it down there to the chapel in person. It's been an interesting week, an interesting couple of weeks for sure. And I want to talk a little bit today about embracing our wholeness. I want to talk about embracing our wholeness, about a little bit about the law of polarity and our social shadows, as I'm starting to call them. So before we kind of fully dive in, I want to just guide us again to just take a nice couple of slow, easy, deep breaths and just really breathe in all of this beautiful energy and aligned centering that we've brought in through our music and through our meditation. And just ask Spirit that we each be opened up to whatever Spirit, Source, Soul, highest level self has for us today in this moment. When I first moved to Los Angeles in 2007, I was coming from Virginia. I'd lived in Virginia off and on, but most of my life. And since you're all in Virginia right now, if you're in person at the chapel, you're probably familiar with the weather patterns in Virginia. There's pretty much 4 seasons. They lately kind of come and go much more than 4 times throughout the year, like back and forth, but there's about 4 of them, right? We can kind of agree on that. You've got your hot summers, your nice springs, your cool falls that we're descending into now beautifully, those kind of hot and humid summers, and those cold winters, right? Those sometimes you get snow depending on where you are. But when I moved to Los Angeles for the first time, it was a little bit different. I moved there in June, so it was getting into kind of the hotter part of the summer there. And if you've never been to Los Angeles, it's very much like a dry heat for the most part across the city, across the area. It's still very hot in the summer, still can get into the triple digits, but at least it's not like usually the wet feeling that you get in Virginia when it's hot and humid and, all of your clothes are sticking to you. In Los Angeles, that arid kind of desert heat will dry it up a little bit faster. But it's this first summer in Los Angeles. It's 2007, I believe. And as the season started to turn, I got through the hottest parts of the summer, getting into the fall. My body was still kind of on that Virginia weather. And so when I went outside, started going outside during those first kind of fall, cooler days of autumn, I was still kind of wearing the same clothes as I was in the summertime. And what surprised me was there was the first day that it was cooler, more cool than it had been. It was, got down to like 56, which was cool for Los Angeles, right? But I was so surprised because I went out in my jeans and my t-shirt, and, whatever, went outside, but I was looking around at people walking in the city and all the Angelinos were in like Ugg boots and like parkas. They were bundled up. It was 56 degrees outside. So I was very confused. But as the years went on, I got less confused because my body adjusted and then that started to get cold for me too. But this idea of hot and cold and this weather being relative is something I want to kind of look at today. So if you've read the Kabbalion or heard about laws, universal laws, you've probably heard about the law of polarity, right? And so briefly, the law of polarity teaches that everything in the universe has an equal opposite. Duality is something that is inherent and necessary in the creative process and in how we understand energy and the world that we live in. Duality, this one thing and its opposite, right? And one of the examples that is given in the Kabbalion is that of temperature, that hot and cold are extremes of temperature. There's this thing that we're talking about that is temperature, and on one side you have hot, and on the other side you have cold. But as we just kind of talked about with the weather, even those polarities can be variable. They can be based a lot on our personal experience and the context that we're in. We still know what we mean when we say hot, and we know what we mean when we say cold. But there's no one place that is the extreme definition of hot nor cold. They're all relative to each other. One person can walk outside and say it is hot, and another person from Virginia can walk outside and say, it's not that bad, right? It's all about the perspective that we have. So these extreme polarities can be anchor points to help us understand possibilities within a spectrum. So when we think about, oftentimes we think about binary thinking. I talk about binary thinking a lot because it's what I grew up with. This idea of an extreme point on one, an extreme point on the other, and these being the only two options. No discussion of the polarity or the energy, the options, the flavors, the spectrum in between, but just the two binary options, left or right or wrong, yes or no. While those can be helpful in some situations, in the vast majority of them, they're really not, because we're missing all of the things that are in between. We're missing all of the four seasons that come between those things that we might describe as hot and cold. So how do we navigate these unhelpful polarities and polarizations when they come up in our own personal lives, in our world around us, when we're kind of forced into people wanting us to think that it's either yes or no, right or wrong, us or them? How do we navigate those moments while we also embrace the gifts that can come when we contemplate the presence of a polarity? There are different things that we can do in different situations. Individually, for me as a person, if I or you or any individual is dealing with a situation that I'm having trouble with, maybe it's a relationship that I'm in that I'm having trouble with, or an interpersonal conflict or an intrapersonal conflict, something I'm having issues with within myself, trying to figure something out, and I'm not feeling good about it. It's making me feel bad. It's making my body feel tired or anxious or sad. Maybe it's trouble at work or at home. The first thing that I intend to remember to do in those situations where I'm feeling that sense of overwhelm or whatever it might be, the first thing that I always intend to do is to breathe. Breathe. To expand my lungs. And this is something we did in the Queer Spirituals event a couple of weeks ago, was just really pause and breathe. And the reason we want to take deeper, longer breaths is because it's part of one of the things that we can do to regulate our nervous system. All of the feelings that we feel, the emotional feelings that we feel, the things that Reverend Trish talked about in the meditation, and all of these are also physical things in our bodies that are taking place. Okay. So when we allow ourselves the time and the space to breathe deeply, it signals to our body that we're safe. It tells our nervous system that you're actually okay right now. You can turn off all of the heightened chemicals and things that are flowing through your body and telling you you're in this fight or flight situation, and you can actually breathe. Because when we are safe and when we are at peace, we have the capacity to breathe slower and more deeply. We're not as constricted or feeling like we're running a marathon or working out. It's that peace of I am safe. So one of the things we can practice, and you can do this anytime, not just in a time of heightened stress, but just really pause and take a nice slow and easy deep breath and fill that bottom half of your lungs first, and then allow yourself to fill the top half of your lungs and just get it all the way filled to capacity, and just hold it just for a moment if that feels safe for you. And then in that moment, after your lungs are already full, take another quick inhale. Because what we realize when we do that is actually our lungs weren't fully full. We just got them as full as we could, but there's a little bit more left. And when you take that inhale at the end, that you're all the way full, and you take that extra inhale, that actually fills even more of the pockets in our lungs that activate those things that our body needs to know, to know that we're safe and we're okay. So doing that and then taking that slow exhale, that's slower, much slower than your inhale. Teaching our body to breathe in these different ways that are slow and measured can help us really regulate our nervous system and our bodies, so that we have the capacity to think more clearly about these things that are causing us harm, or not causing us harm, but causing us discomfort, or things that we don't want to experience. So whenever I'm experiencing one of those individual things, and I'm by myself, and I'm in a safe space, and I'm ready to really navigate through it, if I'm feeling that anxiety, I do the breathing. And then I start to think and reflect on it. I can name it. What was I experiencing? What was causing this anxiety, this depression, this feeling of insufficiency? And journal it out. From that place of feeling safe and feeling regulated, just write it out. And think about, in that idea of polarity, if this is this one side of this thing that I'm experiencing, what could be the opposite end of that? If this also has its equal and opposite, what would that be? If I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety around this argument that I had with someone at work, what would it be to have a completely healed relationship with that person? What would that look like? What would have taken place to make that healing transpire? What would that conversation have gone like if it had ended in a way that resulted in the opposite of this tension that I'm feeling now? And we journal through and we write through some of this stuff. And that helps our bodies not only remain in that regulated space, but tell a better story. And the stories that we tell about ourselves and our lives actually impact how our bodies feel and function, and how we think. And we can start to rewrite the narrative so that we are actually starting to embody the things we want to experience and create, the relationships we want to create, the world that we want to live in, right? So that's one way we can do it when we're dealing with those personal things. But in our interconnected world today, we're also exposed to a lot more things that are outside of us that may or may not be directly related to us in our personal lives. We have a lot more exposure than we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. We have the internet, we have social media, we have these computers that we have in our pockets that we never could have imagined 30 years ago, right? With those, we have a lot of gifts. We have the opportunity for deeper engagement and community. We have the opportunity to cross physical space with the things that we're using right now with Zoom and this video chat, and this ability to connect over space in ways we couldn't before. This could be a powerful and beautiful and aligning and expansive thing, as we have the ability to learn more about each other and the diversity in all of creation and humanity in our world, and all of the beautiful things ideas that we can come into contact with. And it can also expose us to things that we don't want to be exposed to. You may have the experience that I had this week of scrolling and happening upon a video that you did not know was coming and did not want to see. You may be exposed to things that just feel like, this is too much and I want to disengage. I don't want to know anything about what's going on in the world. And so in all the ways that you can, you might be tempted to just fully become a recluse, fully disengage. For me, I think the thing that we can learn to do in this moment in our personal history and our collective history is not to disengage. It is to regulate the things that we expose ourselves to, right? We have to find our sense of balance in life. But instead of disengaging with the things that could be really important for us to engage with as people who are citizens of a country and a place, where our actions and our ability to vote and our ability to engage in civic society absolutely impact our present and our future. Perhaps the things that we need to do is learn to allow ourselves to respond supportively to situations like that, to navigate the emotions and the things that come up in the moment, and learn to respond in helpful, supportive ways for ourselves and for the people around us. It's just like the Bible talks about. For every thing there is a season. There is a time to laugh and a time to grieve, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And sometimes the trouble comes when we decide to stay in one of those things beyond the time of its season. And so these are things that we can learn, the breathing and the journaling and the re-envisioning and the rewriting, ways that we can help ourselves navigate through those spaces, those seasons, in times that are supportive for us and the people around us, so that we can continue to be the love and the light that we are all called to be, metaphysically, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, all the dimensions that we're here to experience and be a part of. So in those times where we see those things, whether it's videos or news articles or photos or things that may happen in front of us that are troubling, violence taking place, or people speaking violently against other human beings who bear the same divine spark as each of us, or people speaking harmfully against groups of people, whatever that may look like. In those moments, we come to realize that this is unhelpful polarity. This is the driving of people against each other and against spirit. This is the contribution to our social shadow and our collective experience. So if you're unfamiliar with the idea of shadow, it comes from a long line, I'm sure, of indigenous practices worldwide. And the psychoanalyst Carl Jung talked about shadow a lot in his work. It's discussed a lot in transpersonal psychology. But when I talk about shadow, I'm talking about the part of us that holds whatever we are denying or rejecting in our lives, whether individually and in this space when I'm talking about society collectively. And this thing that the shadow holds is that part of us that we don't want anybody to see or know, or the part of us that we wish was not there, or the part of us that causes shame, or the part of us that we don't want to acknowledge. Perhaps that's the ways that we've behaved in the past, or this part of us that we've been taught is really weird, so we don't want people to see it about us. For me, one of the things that I kept in shadow for a long time, as you all know, was my sexuality. I grew up in religious environments where it was not okay to be gay, and God wanted to be straight. And so all of my sexuality I relegated to shadow. And it was something I was aware of to a certain degree. I wouldn't have given it this language, but it was something that still I intentionally kept there. But because of that, there were also other parts of me that were working unconsciously to keep that thing in shadow. And the thing about whatever it is that we're holding or allowing to be held in our shadow is that it actually has a lot more control over our actions than we realize. What is in shadow, if we don't navigate it, if we don't learn how to love it and send it the love that it's asking for, if we don't integrate those things that are in our shadow appropriately, it will be the things that pop up when we least expect it, the things that start to drive the bus when we're in those places of dysregulation, when we're in those places of anxiety or turmoil or fear or sorrow. The stuff that's hidden in shadow will be the stuff that surfaces to take over. So we have to do this work of navigating it and integrating it and sending it love supportively. What doesn't help, in my opinion, and of course, all of this is my opinion and context. These are all, as everything in the chapel, all of this is free for discussion. But if we don't do that work of integrating shadow, we run the risk of letting that be the thing that leads our lives, whether we're realizing it or not. So if there are things that particularly stand out to us in our physical lives, in our social lives, whether we're seeing things online, there are things that feel particularly triggering. There are things that stand out to us in a negative way that could be pointing to something that we're holding in shadow that's asking for integration, whether that's individually or collectively. We're holding a lot of things in collective shadow right now. A lot of the things are coming up for transmutation and for integration. And the longer that we allow ourselves and our society to stay in this place of polarized discussion of this or that, nothing in between, no rays of different colors or no understanding between. If we stay in this or that and we push hard against that, the shadow will continue to drive the bus. It will continue to tell us where we're going. So as we breathe, as we meditate, as we journal, as we connect with spirit, as we send all of the love to all of these places that are asking for love in our lives and in our society, we can then start to learn what the next actions need to be that take place to take this transformation to the next level. I would encourage all of us, for me especially, whenever I give a lecture or talk or anything, it's 10 times out of 10, it's really for me. One of the things I know I need to remember to always do is to listen. 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 Because as much pain and suffering is caused by people who continue to speak negatively of their fellow human beings, those that they don't understand, even when they're presented with information that would help them understand, they choose not to look at it or not to integrate it. There is still pain there. And that's not all of our jobs to do. But what is our job to do is to ask ourselves, what is coming up in my life in response to this for transmutation, for love, for integration, so that when I go out into the world, in whatever capacity it might be, whether in person, shopping for groceries, at my place of work, at my place of worship or my spiritual center, I can embody that love and that light that I am imbued with as a divine spark of the same common source from which we all come. And I can do and be that divine love and light in all the unique ways that I have been created to do that with. Because we all carry unique gifts and unique abilities and unique energies and talents and ways to interact with people and be creative and serve our communities and our world. We all have these unique aspects because we're all from the same divine source, but source is infinitely diverse and creative. And so each of us carries a little piece of that. And to really fully embody that, we have to be aligned with that spirit of love and unity. And if we're bogged down by the us versus them, the binary only options, the extremes of the polarity without bringing in the love to help us see the bridge, we won't be able to fully uncover all those unique pieces of ourselves that we're here to live out loud and serve our world with. So as I close, I want to invite you to take a nice couple of slow, easy, deep breaths, just like I started out with. In through the nose, if that's comfortable, just allow your bottom half of your lungs first to fill up and then the top half. And then once you get up to the top, hold for just a moment and then take another just quick deep breath and then just slowly exhale and just let it out. Allow yourself to feel fully safe and fully calm and fully centered and fully aligned with the greatest and highest wisdom that you carry inside of yourself. And continuing to breathe at your own pace, just ask Spirit in this moment, what are the things that I am here to understand today? What am I here to understand today? You might even ask Spirit just for one word or phrase that'll serve as an inspiration for me to be the brilliant, colorful, light bearer, creative being that you are. Spirit, if you were to give me one word or phrase that would inspire me to just step fully into my brilliant love and light leadership, what would that be? So we continue to breathe just for a moment. I invite you to ponder that, to contemplate that, to turn it over in your mind if you got a word or a phrase, and just see how that unfolds over the coming week. And in the process of doing that, remember that there is no gift that you will ever receive or be asked to embody that does not create equal space for every other person around you and on this planet to do the same. There is no competition of space or energy in that regard. We are all called to bring our full and brilliant aspects of our love and our light and our creativity to these lives fully in ways that always honor the sacredness and divinity of every other person around us and encourages them to do the exact same thing in whatever unique ways they are called to do it as well. Amen.